It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Back in prison, the Epping sex offender is tonight behind bars. Sky News understands Hadush Kabatu will be deported on Tuesday. The Justice Secretary confirms eyewitness testimony of the moments after his release, which was shown on Sky News, will form part of an independent inquiry. That's as the family of the girl Kabatu sexually assaulted expressed their fury at the blunder.
The police, the justice system and our Labour government, they have all failed. Not just us as a family, but they have failed everyone in the country.
The Caribbean island of Jamaica prepares for a powerful hurricane with life-threatening flash floods and landslides forecast. In Paris, 2 suspected crown jewel thieves are questioned. Officials say one of them tried to flee the country. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. A sex offender who was accidentally released from prison is back behind bars tonight, awaiting deportation. Sky News understands that Hadush Kabatu will be deported on Tuesday. He was arrested in the Finsbury Park area of London this morning after a tip-off from a member of the public. The Justice Secretary has confirmed that the eyewitness account of a delivery driver told to Sky News will form part of an urgent inquiry. Our national correspondent Tom Parmenter reports.
This is how it ended. One of the most wanted men in Britain bundled into a police van on the 3rd day of this manhunt. A member of the public had spotted sex offender Hadush Kabatu close to this bus stop in Finsbury Park, North London. They then alerted the police. Officers found him in the park, no longer in his grey prison tracksuit. They had him in handcuffs 16 minutes after the tip-off.
There was no fuss, there was no aggravation there at all. He seemed very calm, willing to accept that, he'd been rearrested.
He's now back in custody at Wormwood Scrubs in West London. The manhunt may be over, but this calamitous episode is under massive scrutiny. The only thing they can put right is to get the deportation to Ethiopia done correctly. Sky News understands that the government want to put him on a plane on Tuesday. Anything could have happened during the 48 hours he was ambling around London. The protests have continued in Epping, where Kabatu sexually assaulted a schoolgirl this summer. Her dad shared his thoughts via a local councillor.
Myself and my family feel massively let down and infuriated by HMP Chelmsford, the police, the justice system and our Labour government. They have all failed. Not just us as a family, but they have failed everyone in the country.
The Justice Secretary, who has responsibility for prisons, said the witness that we spoke to on Sky News, who described Kabatu repeatedly asking for help outside the prison gates for 90 minutes, will inform their investigations.
Well, I've seen the Sky reporting from yesterday, and of course that will be subject to the independent inquiry that must now take place. The public need to be reassured that people are due to be released, are released properly.
One member of staff has been suspended at Chelmsford Prison, but this case highlights a criminal justice system riddled with problems.
And I hope David Lammy in all this chaos starts holding people to account, not the junior member of staff under the bus, but the people who are overall responsible for day in, day out catastrophic failures.
The anger over the UK's dysfunctional immigration system is simply intensified when things like this happen. Even if Kabatu is now deported to Ethiopia, it solves very little. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Well, Hadush Kabatu was on the run for nearly 48 hours before he was rearrested. On Friday, he was released from HMP Chelmsford in Essex by mistake, ahead of a planned deportation. Later that day, he was spotted in Chelmsford in a grey prison tracksuit. At 12:41 p.m, he boarded a train to London, bound from Chelmsford railway station. He arrived at Stratford station in East London at 1:12 p.m. That evening, CCTV captured him at a library in nearby Dalston at 6 p.m. Hadush Kabatu was arrested by police this morning in the Finsbury Park area of London. Well, Emma Birchley joins us now from New Scotland Yard. And Emma, what exactly led to Kibatu being captured?
In the end, it was old-fashioned policing, because if you don't have a bank card, you don't have a mobile phone, then there's no digital footprint to track. Of course, there was CCTV and he kept popping up. We saw various images, but the public's help was absolutely crucial. So you can imagine the relief when at 8:03 a call came in from a member of the public. It was followed up and there he was. They were able to track him down and get him back in custody without much fuss, sent off to Wormwood Scrubs, a Category B prison, just like Chelmsford, where he was released from on Friday morning. And now the opportunity to question him. It'll all form part of that inquiry which is underway to determine exactly what happened. So they'll want to hear his version of events on Friday morning. Of course, also fill in some of the gaps about what he was up to over those 2 days. And they have to get cracking, because once he's gone, he's gone. And as we understand, Tuesday he'll be back on a plane to Ethiopia. So once he's gone, the repercussions, however, will carry on. So we know that already new protocols are in place when it comes to the release of prisoners. We know too that this spotlight will remain on this creaking criminal justice system. And of course there are the real world repercussions. You think about that teenage girl who suffered the sexual assault and her family have been put through all this stress that could and should have been avoided.
Well, as Emma was saying, about independent inquiry is underway. New mandatory checks for prison releases are due to come into effect on Monday. Hadish Kibatu was convicted of sexually assaulting a teenage girl and a woman while he was staying in a migrant hotel in Epping. His case sparked days of protests, and the blunder over his release has drawn criticism from across the political spectrum. Here's our chief political correspondent, John Craig.
Hadish Kibatu may have been recaptured, but the political row over his mistaken release from Chelmsford Prison is set to escalate. Ministers are now expected to face the fury of MPs, who are demanding to know how it happened and who's to blame.
It's welcome that he has been apprehended in East London, but of course he should never have been released in the first place. And I think the Justice Secretary and the Home Secretary should frankly apologise to the British public for presiding over a system which led to his release to start with.
The Conservatives also claim Kibatu's crime was a consequence of Labour's failure to curb illegal immigration, since he entered the UK in a small boat across the Channel. It was the Ethiopian asylum seeker's sexual assault on a 14-year-old girl that sparked angry protests outside the Bell Hotel, Epping, where he was housed until his arrest. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, says he'll make a common statement on Kibatu's release when MPs return to Westminster after the weekend. He says he'll announce the terms of reference and other details about the investigation. But he's certain to face a tough time from MPs of all parties. The Liberal Democrat MP for Chelmsford says her constituents were made to feel unsafe after Kibatu's release.
This is not just something that happened in Chelmsford. This is happening all over the country, and that's why I'm calling for a public inquiry to understand what's going wrong in our prison service and how we can fix it. And then the really important thing is that we do actually fix it.
The Prime Minister said Kibatu would now be deported after his arrest and added, "We have ordered an investigation to establish what went wrong. We must make sure this doesn't happen again." But failures in the public services, like Kibatu's mistaken release, undermine the public's trust and confidence, according to the Health Secretary.
There is a deep disillusionment in this country at the moment, and I would say a growing sense of despair about whether anyone is capable of turning this country round.
Reform UK demanded the resignation of the Chelmsford prison governor.
When was the last time you had a catastrophic failure of a civil servant that actually resulted in them being forced to resign? Instead, usually they get put into the House of Lords. So this is a catalogue of failures.
Ministers will not only want the investigation into this prison blunder to be swift, but also that Kibatu is now deported without delay. John Craig, Sky News.
The first arrests have been made following the brazen daylight robbery at the Louvre in Paris, in which a number of France's crown jewels were stolen. Prosecutors say 2 people are now in custody and that one of them tried to flee the country. Amelia Harper reports.
A heist at the world's most visited museum hasn't deterred the usual crowds. It's 1 week after a robbery targeted the Louvre, and tour groups now have another stop, the window where the break-in happened. It's visitors hearing that 2 suspects have now been arrested.
I think the main thing now is whether they can recover the jewels. That's what really matters. As for the legal side, I don't know what's going to happen to them. That's another story.
Yes, it's important for our heritage. A week later, it does feel a little late. We wonder how this could even happen, but it was important that the guys were caught.
It was at 9:30 a.m. on the 19th of October when robbers used this motorised ladder to access the first floor of the museum. They entered the Apollo Gallery by smashing the window, here in blue, before stealing French crown jewels. The items taken include necklaces, earrings and a tiara. And this was their escape, before exiting on scooters. The arrests were first publicised in the French press, to the disappointment of the Paris prosecutor, who said, "I deeply deplore the hasty disclosure of this information by informed individuals without consideration for the investigation. This revelation can only harm the investigative efforts of the 100 or so investigators involved in the search." But as they assess the robbers' entry point, should they have seen this coming?
What we see is a lot of these historic buildings are predisposed by their very architecture to have some vulnerabilities in general. We've counted more than 20 museum thefts since 2017 of jewelry and of high-value gold items. So it's not just a situation, specific to the Louvre itself, but it's something that we see that happens frequently.
Police have made headway with 2 suspects found, but the jewels themselves are still missing. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Now to a powerful storm expected to make landfall in Jamaica tomorrow evening. Hurricane Melissa is currently Category 4, with winds of up to 140 miles per hour, and it's expected to become even stronger. Forecasters have predicted catastrophic flash flooding and landslides. NBC correspondent George Solis is on the island as people there prepare.
As expected, Hurricane Melissa, now a strong Category 4 hurricane. It is expected to intensify potentially into a Category 5 right before making landfall here in Jamaica. Right now, as you may see, conditions still calm, but we're starting to see those first waves of rain and some of that wind start to pick up. That is only expected to ramp up and intensify. You can see some buildings here already starting to reinforce doors and windows here in the event of flooding. There's some sandbags here, some plywood. This continues along this building here. You can see more sandbags that have been placed. The warning from government officials continues to be the same. If you haven't made those preparations, to do so right now, because at some point it is simply going to be too dangerous to go outside. This storm, it could be catastrophic. It could produce landslides, rock slides, and of course, there is going to be a lot of water here. We're forecasting unheard amounts of rain here for Jamaica, not seen in a very long time. This is an island that has experienced hurricanes before, but nothing to this extent. This is going to be a rainmaker. It's going to be slow moving. Government officials saying they do have resources ready to be deployed once the storm is over, but everyone is being asked to hunker down to weather this storm because they are preparing for the worst.
Donald Trump claims he's now responsible for ending 8 wars after overseeing a hasty ceasefire deal between Cambodia and Thailand. It was the US president's first stop on a 5-day Asia tour. He says he's confident of securing a trade deal with his Chinese counterpart when they meet on Thursday. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner reports.
Touching down ahead of a trip through Asia, Donald Trump trying to put on a friendly face. But his aggressive tariffs have put relations across this region on shakier ground. Malaysia is the first stop, with visits to Japan and South Korea to come. Trump says he's here to make deals. But first, the signing of yet another peace agreement, recognising the end of a brief war between Thailand and Cambodia. and the repeating of a dubious claim.
So as you know, this is one of 8 wars that my administration has ended in just 8 months. We're averaging one a month. There is only one left. Although I heard that Pakistan and Afghanistan have started up, but I'll get that solved very quickly.
This trip, though, is mainly about trade and ramping up the pressure on China. These bilats a precursor to the big one. Trump is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping later in the week for the first time in 6 years. The world's 2 economic superpowers have been engaged in a high-stakes tit-for-tat, Trump using tariffs and Xi rare earth minerals as leverage. Officials teeing up a trade deal ahead of their meeting in South Korea.
President Trump gave me a great deal of negotiating leverage with the threat of the 100% tariffs on November 1st, and I believe we've reached a very substantial framework that will avoid that and allow us to discuss many other things with the Chinese.
But we've seen how swiftly Donald Trump changes his mind, even with supposedly friendly countries.
High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries.
This advert from the Canadian province of Ontario, featuring the voice of Ronald Reagan.
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
It sent Trump into a tailspin, the US suddenly pulling out of trade talks. Japan's new Prime Minister, the first woman to hold the job, is aware the US President is mercurial. They meet on Monday. Trump relishes the pomp, the frivolity of these visits, but the matters at hand are deeply serious. The fact a meeting with Xi is even on the books hints that de-escalation in their trade war may be to come. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
The Sudanese paramilitary Rapid Support Force says it's captured the army headquarters in the besieged city of Al-Fashir in what could be a major turning point in the country's civil war. Al-Fashir is the Sudanese army's last stronghold in the Darfur region in the west of the country. The siege between the two sides has seen starvation spread across the city, where 250,000 residents remain. Our Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bigir has more.
The trumpet horns of a hollow victory. The paramilitary RSF celebrate their capture of an army garrison in the heart of a regional capital they've starved and bombarded for 18 months. They say they've taken Al-Fashir and effectively the entire Darfur region. But army soldiers say they're holding on in other parts of the city. After enduring months of starvation and shelling, civilians are fleeing Al-Fashir en masse, monitored and filmed by RSF drones, and trailed by RSF trucks as they leave on foot in long, somber queues. The city emptied as the RSF captured the Sudanese Armed Forces 6th Infantry Division. The army has largely withdrawn to this narrow western area of state-held territory. The area in yellow is held by the RSF, who've encircled the city for months and have now advanced into its center. After days of intensified battles moving street to street, with men and women on the front line. Al-Fashir's skyline has been blackened by smoke in weeks of intensified RSF drone strikes, leading the army to abandon the garrison as an operations base before it was captured. These videos shared by the RSF show them rounding up men of fighting age and accusing them of being part of the army. Sources who left the city told Sky News that civilians were executed by the RSF as they tried to flee. Al-Fashir is in a full communications blackout, the trademark sign of an RSF takeover.
The people inside Al-Fashir, the civilian and the army and the joint forces, all the people there are waiting for the Sudanese army and waiting for the planes, the war planes, and waiting for the airdrops. And if all of this didn't happen, I'm afraid that to see the Al-Fashir is falling.
The RSF are parading their advances as a full-on victory in other Darfuri capitals under their control, while the people of Al-Fashir watch and wait for the fog to lift and the survivors of the RSF to emerge. Yusra El-Bigir, Sky News.
Russia has successfully tested a new nuclear-powered cruise missile across 14,000 kilometres, according to the country's military chief. Vladimir Putin has claimed that it's invincible to current and future missile defences due to its almost unlimited range and unpredictable flight path. He said military leaders were preparing to deploy the weapon to the armed forces. Israel has allowed an Egyptian team and the Red Cross into an area controlled by the IDF to help recover the remaining Israeli hostages. It's believed 13 bodies remain in Gaza, but Hamas has previously said locating them is proving difficult as rubble is covering burial sites. Former Bank of England Governor Lord Mervyn King has criticised subsequent governments' approach to tax reforms ahead of the Chancellor's budget next month. He was speaking to Trevor Phillips.
We haven't seen a Chancellor take a strategic look at the tax system for almost 40 years. It's been one kind of tinkering after another, and that's created a mess and excessively complex. So, take property taxation. So we read in the papers this morning that maybe there'll be a wealth tax on high-value properties. But
the so-called mansion tax.
Yeah, but property taxes are an interaction between stamp duty, council tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax. You don't solve that problem by just adding another wealth tax to it. The OBR produces just before the budget one number, and then they look round for, what ideas almost written on the back of a fact packet about how you can raise an extra few billion here or a few billion there. That is not coherent tax strategy.
Time now to catch up on all the latest sports news with Gavin.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
OK. Are you ready? Yeah.
35 prisoners were released from Barlini prison this morning, but only one left in a limousine.
Duncan spoke about the letters he's had when he was in prison, and that created a bond between Duncan and Everton.
It's not just words. I love them, and I'll always love them.
It's the story which has gripped Merseyside. Walter Smith's future on the line. The Everton boss apparently close to quitting over the multi-million-pound sale of captain Duncan Ferguson to Newcastle.
We were under pressure from the bank to get the overdraft down.
It upset me. You try to move on. It's not easy for me. I couldn't rub off my tattoo, could I?
The fans adore him. Then all of a sudden, crash bang walla, he's playing with the striped shirt on.
A fan had came into the training ground, burst into reception, sat herself on a seat and refused to move until Duncan Ferguson was re-signed.
It was a bit of a shock. Once your club doesn't want you, really it's inevitable you've got to move, haven't you?
What's signing for Rangers, Duncan?
It's brilliant.
Duncan.
I knew that when I signed for Rangers, that was explained to me that really it probably was a year too early for me, but because I was wanting to move away from Dundee United, Walter decided to sign me probably a year too early. He wanted to sign me really a year later. It was a bit early for me to break in.
Probably the best kid in Scotland at the time now. He broke into Dundee United team very early, established himself. The Walt was building for the future and building a team, and Duncan was the ideal the prospect to get.
I mean, they were the best in the country. Two great strikers, Mark, big target man, and Ali, the smaller guy picking up the second ball and scoring all the goals. I mean, Mark chipped him a hell of a lot of goals as well. So it was very difficult for me to break into the team.
But certainly now, Duncan found himself restricted in playing the position he wanted to play. And he found himself now playing different positions, wide and right, wide and left, which didn't really suit him.
It didn't quite work out for me. Injuries as well played a part, which played a part really through my career. Nothing was inevitable, but in the back of your mind you're thinking you maybe have to move on, I see myself as a quiet guy, never went looking for confrontation at all. Of course there's another little bit of side to me, wasn't there, off the field as well. Just as long as you don't break into my house, you're alright.
You nervous, Duncan? What do you think about the prospect of moving there?
When the incident just happened, I didn't think anything was going to happen, but of course then I heard the noise after again, so I knew something was up then. They obviously knew I was on probation, and if I got another offence against me, there was a chance of me going to prison.
Duncan being Duncan just got on with it.
Well, we were struggling at the time. Mike Walker was the manager. We were looking to get hold of one or two players. We heard that Trevor Stephen was leaving Rangers. And of course, Trevor was with us in the 80s through brilliant years. So we arranged to go up to see David Murray at Rangers. He said, if you want to talk to Trevor, he's actually doing laps around the track. He said, then you can go and chat to him and then come back here. So Peter Johnson and I, owner chairman at the time, he and I.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Legendary rock star Jon Bon Jovi and his band will make a triumphant return next year after he underwent vocal cord surgery. Their Forever tour will see them take to the stage for the first time in 4 years and include stops in New York, Edinburgh, Dublin and London. He's been speaking to our entertainment reporter, Debbie Ridgard.
You know, if I didn't evolve, people have been on this train with us for these 43 years. Some got off along the way to go and have a life. Others got on at that point and took it to the next destination, and they got off and they went and had a life. So this evolution is a part of my life. And where you get on the train and get off the train is all understood. But, the train kept going.
Your pal Bruce, he has had his own film. Would you ever like that to happen to you? Would you like a biopic happen to you? And is there somebody in mind that you would
No,
consider?
I have no idea about that.
Would you not?
I mean, the story of me is still being written. I loved his movie. It's at a time in 1982 where I was very much alive, and I wrote Runaway that year. I was playing 2 blocks over from where he was playing with that cover band every Sunday night. In fact, they competed with my playing. So we would literally close our bar and go because we knew he'd be playing there on Sunday night. I mean, I lived it. And watching the movie, sitting next to him in the movie theater, I kept punching him. I said, it's like a time machine. It's a time machine. Because, there was a part of all of our lives growing up in New Jersey and what he meant to, or means to all of us.
How has it been becoming the granddad?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a beautiful thing, and you feel the responsibility for your kids' kids. The holidays will be that much brighter this year, and we have a second one any day now. If I get the call, my wife is out of here now, because the second one's coming next week.
Has it influenced your songwriting at all?
Not yet.
And in this Legends album as well, you co-wrote one of the songs with Ed Sheeran as
did.
well. I was hoping we were going to get him on a collab too. Would that ever happen in the future?
Yes, and I wanted him very much on this, and that would have been perfect. But Ed and I discussed it immediately, and he had said, I've done too many things. I need to put my record out before I can do anything else. I made a promise to. And I said, all right, you little brat, it's fine. But no, I love him, and we wrote a song together, and it was easy. He came with Cherry and the kids and stayed with me, and we just, hang out, and of course we're going to get around to writing something.
Yeah. Will we expect any surprise appearances, maybe?
Who knows? Who knows who's in town at the day, on the day.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. When we come back, I'll be joined by political journalist and broadcaster Theo Usherwood and broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Times. Their headline, billions lost to flawed hotel deals for migrants. Do stay with us for more. We'll be right back.